I'd like to introduce you to Paul Mackey, who is our Finance Admin Officer, and he will tell you about our accounts.
Hello, I'm Paul Mackey, and I'm the Finance and Admin Officer as well as the Company Secretary for the Solway Firth Partnership. In this video I'll be giving a brief summary of the finances for the partnership for the year ending 31st March 2020. It will be brief and it will be a summary. If you're interested in seeing more detail, I would recommend that you have a look at our full accounts, which are published on our website, and I'll give you some more details about how to find those towards the end of the video. This first slide shows a summary of the income and expenditure for the year. Total income for the year was £182,000, and this is an increase of about 13% on the previous year. Unrestricted income increased by about 4%, and restricted income increased by around 16%. Restricted income tends to be more variable than unrestricted income, as much of it depends not only on how successful we are in applying for grants, but also on the timing of grant claims. Total expenditure at £205,000 is also higher than last year, by around 8%. Unrestricted expenditure decreased by around 4%, and the bulk of this is due to the fact that we didn't run a conference during the year. If we exclude this item, then costs increased slightly, by a little over 1%. Overall, we ran a deficit in the year of £23,000, with a restricted funds deficit of £28,000, partially offset by a small surplus on unrestricted funds. The deficit on restricted funds is mainly due to timing factors, as many of our grants need to be claimed in arrears. The situation at the end of the year was looking a little bit alarming, with the accumulated restricted funds deficit creeping up towards the total surplus on unrestricted funds. The main problem here being the very slow processing of claims for leader-funded projects. Thankfully, since the end of the year, we have managed to recover about £50,000 in restricted funds claims. Combined with the £10,000 COVID-19 relief grant from Dumfries and Galloway Council, as well as funding received from our usual core funders, this means our cash balances are again looking reasonably healthy. This next slide shows where that £182,000 of income came from and how it's broken down between major project areas. The blue section on the right represents our core funding, and the major funder here continues to be Marine Scotland. That core funding slice represents about £64,000 of income in the year, and Marine Scotland provide over half of that. The next largest funder is RWE Renewables, E.ON as was, who not only make a contribution towards the production of the Tidelines magazine, but also provide some funding in return for our help in managing the Robin Rigg Community Benefit Fund. Our other regular funders are Cumbria County Council, Allerdale Borough Council, and Carlisle City Council. And we're grateful to all these funders because without them it would be a real struggle to run the organization at all. The yellow section towards the top of the chart represents the income for the Solway Coastwise project. During the year, the bulk of the money came from the Leader program, with a small contribution from Dumfries and Galloway Council itself. The orange section at the bottom of the chart represents the Smile project, where all of the funding is coming from the EMFF program administered by Marine Scotland. The grey section towards the left represents the Seas and Seas projects. These were two major pieces of consultancy work which complement the Smile project. The funding for this work was provided by the EMFF program, with half coming from Marine Scotland and the other half coming from the MMO in England. The blue section at the bottom left is everything else. The two largest components here were from the MMO for stakeholder engagement work, and again from Marine Scotland EMFF for the Fishing Faces project. The final slide gives a breakdown of what we spent £205,000 on last year, and again it is broken down by major project areas. Each project area is further broken down between pay costs, accommodation costs, and any other external costs. The blue section again represents core activities. Spending on core, not including tide lines, makes up a little over a quarter of the total, around 27%, with pay costs being about 62% of this. The remainder is split fairly evenly between accommodation costs and all the other overhead costs. The orange section on the left represents the SMILE project, where the bulk of the costs incurred in the year were pay costs. The yellow section towards the bottom represents the Solway Coastwise project, and here costs were split fairly evenly between pay costs and external costs. The grey section in the lower right of the chart represents the C's and C's projects, and between them they represent about 20% of the total spend for the year. Now, I hope this presentation has given you a reasonable overview of where the money came from and how we spent it during the year. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you're interested in delving into more detail, then I encourage you to have a look at the published accounts. These are published every year on our website, and you can find them by following the About Us link from the main menu, and then looking at the What We Do page. Scroll down and you'll find a link to the accounts, as well as a link to our current business plan. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentations.
So thanks for that update, Paul, and that's the end of our staff updates.